Hi, and welcome to Keeping History on Two Wheels. With it being the week of Christmas, I wanted to do a story that happened in the U.S. history during the week of Christmas. So with that being said, we here at Keeping History on Two Wheels would like to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever we do an upload. Don't forget to like and share. In December of 1776, General George Washington had been considering some sort of bold move since arriving in Pennsylvania. With the arrival of Sullivan's and Gates's forces and the influx of militia companies, he felt the time was finally right for some sort of action. He considered an attack on the southernmost British positions near Mount Holly, where a militia force had gathered under Samuel Griffin. He sent his adjutant, Joseph Reed, to meet with Griffin. Now, Reed arrived in Mount Holly on December 22nd and found Griffin to be ill and his men in relatively poor condition. But now they were willing to make some sort of diversion, and this they did with the Battle of Ironworks Hill the next day, drawing the Hessians, or German mercenaries, at Bordentown far enough south that they wouldn't be able to come to the assistance of the Trenton garrison. The intelligence gathered by Reed and others led Washington to abandon the idea of attacking Mount Holly, preferring instead to target the Trenton garrison. He announced this decision to his staff on December 23rd, saying the attack would take place just before daybreak on December 22nd. Now, Washington's final plan was for 3 crossings, with his troops, the largest contingent, to lead the attack on Trenton. A second column under Lieutenant Colonel John Cadwalader was to cross at Dunk's Ferry in Bensalem Township, Pennsylvania, and create a diversion to the south. A third column under Brigadier General James Ewing was to cross at Trenton Ferry and hold the bridge across the Sunpink Creek just south of Trenton. That was in order to prevent the British escape by that route. Once Trenton was secure, the combined army would move against the British post in Princeton and New Brunswick. Preparations for the attack began on December 23rd, and on December 24th, the boats used to bring the army across the Delaware from Pennsylvania were brought down from Malta Island near New Hope. They were hidden behind Taylor's Island at McConkey's Ferry. Now, McConkey's Ferry was the planned crossing site, and security was tightened at the crossing. A final planning meeting took place that day. With all the general officers present, general orders were issued by Washington on December 25th, outlining the plans for the operation. Now, a wide variety of watercraft were being used for the crossing, primarily through the work of militiamen from the surrounding counties in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and the assistance of Pennsylvania Navy. Yes, at the time, each colony had their own navy, if that's what you wanted to call them. Captain Daniel Bray, along with Captain Jacob Gerhardt and Captain Jacob Ten Eyck, were chosen by General Washington to take charge of the boats used in the crossing, supervising the transport of infantry, cavalry, and cannons, in addition to the large ferry vessels, which were big enough to carry large coaches and likely served to carry horses and artillery during the crossing. A large number of Durham boats were used to transport soldiers across the river. Now, these boats were designed to carry heavy loads from the Durham ironworks, and they featured high sides and shallow draft and could be poled across the river. The boats were operated by experienced watermen. Most prominent among them were the men of John Glover's Marblehead Regiment, a company of experienced seamen from Marblehead, Massachusetts. These men were joined by seamen, dock workers, and shipbuilders from Philadelphia, as well as local ferry operators and boatsmen who knew the river well. On the morning of December 25th, Washington ordered his army to prepare 3 days' food and issued orders that every soldier was to be outfitted with fresh flints for their muskets. He was also somewhat worried about intelligence reports that the British were planning their own crossing once the Delaware was frozen over, so he had to get the drop on them. By 4 p.m., Washington's army turned out for its evening parade, where the troops were issued ammunition and even the officers and the musicians were ordered to carry muskets. They were told that they were departing on a secret mission, marching 8 abreast in close formations and ordered to be as quiet as possible as they left the camp for McConkey's Ferry. Washington's plan required the crossing to begin as soon as it was dark enough to conceal their movements on the river. But most of the troops did not reach the crossing until about 6 p.m., about 90 minutes after sunset. The weather got progressively worse, turning from drizzle to rain to sleet and then snow. Washington had given charge of the crossing logistics to his chief of artillery officer, the portly Henry Knox. In addition to the crossing of large numbers of troops, most of whom could not swim, he had to safely transport horses and 18 pieces of artillery over the river. Knox wrote that the crossing was accomplished with almost infinite difficulty, and that its most significant danger was floating ice in the river. One observer noted that the whole operation might well have failed if it were not for Colonel Knox. Washington was among the first troops to cross, going with Virginia troops led by General Adam Stephen. These troops formed a sentry line around the landing area in New Jersey, with strict instructions that no one was to pass through. The password was victory or death. The rest of the army crossed without significant incident, although a few, including Delaware's Colonel John Haslett, fell into the water. The amount of ice on the river prevented the artillery from crossing until 3 a.m. on December 26. The troops were not ready to march until 4 a.m. The 2 other crossings didn't fare as well. The treacherous weather and the ice jams on the river stopped General Ewing from even attempting to cross below Trenton. Colonel Cadwalader crossed a significant portion of his men in New Jersey, but when he found that he could not get his artillery across the river, he recalled his men from New Jersey. When he received word about Washington's victory, he crossed his men over again, but retreated yet again when he found out that Washington had not stayed in New Jersey. On the morning of December 26, as soon as the army was ready, Washington ordered it split into 2 columns, one under the command of himself and General Greene, and the second under General Sullivan. The Sullivan column would take River Road from Bear Tavern to Trenton, while Washington's column would follow Pennington Road, a parallel route that lay a few miles inland from the river. Only 3 Americans were killed and 6 wounded, while 22 Hessians were killed and 98 wounded. The Americans captured 1,000 prisoners and seized muskets, powder, and artillery. At the time of the crossing, Washington's army included a significant number of people who played important roles in the formation and early days of the United States of America. These included future President James Monroe, future Chief Justice of the United States John Marshall, Alexander Hamilton, a future Secretary of the Treasury, and Arthur St. Clair, who later served as President of the Continental Congress and Governor of the Northwest Territory. Both sides of the Delaware River, where the crossing took place, have even been preserved in an area designated as the Washington's Crossing National Historic Landmark. In this district, Washington Crossing Historic Park in Washington Crossing, Pennsylvania, preserves the area in Pennsylvania, and Washington Crossing State Park marks the New Jersey side. The two areas are connected by the Washington Crossing Bridge. In 1851, the artist Emanuel Leutz created the painting called Washington Crossing the Delaware. It was an idealized and historically inaccurate portrayal of the crossing. Fictional portrayals in film of the crossing have also been made, with perhaps the most notable recent one being The Crossing, a 2000 television movie starring Jeff Daniels as George Washington. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button. It's right over here. Don't forget to hit that bell so that you'll be notified whenever we do an upload, and we do one each and every week. We here at Keeping History on Two Wheels would like to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. Please have safe holidays, and we're looking forward to seeing you after the new year. Remember, every trip starts with a step, and that step, well, it starts with you.